Aloha and welcome to the Human Design in Real Life podcast. I am your host, Wynd, along with our co-host, Karen Kartika. Welcome. Super excited to have you all here listening to this today. So today, the topic that we're going to be diving into is all about why it's important to know about the gates of human design. Because in the breadth of information that we have online today, everyone focuses on strategy and authority. And even the IHDS school, the curriculum or the path that you would take in order to become more advanced in becoming a professional analyst is within that realm in school, and we can talk about more of that in a different time. So their whole method is starting just with strategy and authority and then moving up their ladder into the more detailed explanations. I have the teacher manuals. I have the manuals for their initial programs. I have like their curriculum. I have all that. Granted, I probably don't have a lot of the stuff that's said in between when you're doing that kind of stuff, but I have the general outline of the program. And I have just had a very different take or experience with how I understood my own human design. And I felt like I ended up working backwards. And also, it's how I like to differentiate myself from the IHDS and like what makes maybe even what makes holistic human design a little bit different as even a brand name, because I found that making this understanding super easy, because just my take on it or how my experience of coming into human design was so backwards. Because I ended up intuiting my strategy and authority for 6 years, working the invites, following the path where I'm being invited into things. I did that for 6 years before I even heard of human design at all. I was invited into work projects, invited into being a caretaker at a hot springs in Ojai, private security, hot springs, invited into that, and then had a very successful career where we were invited on professional house sits, while we were invited into different West Coast trimming, medical cannabis trimming jobs. Like we just kept getting invited. So I had a long succession of experiencing success through the art of the invitation. And then come 2018, when I finally saw my chart for the first time, I was like, oh my goodness, but the invitation, I'm like, yeah, I totally went that route. I did that. And then it made me want to, because doing it this way had only gotten me so far, but then I saw an opportunity, or I had naturally I wanted to get into the meat and the potatoes, which I felt was the gates. And it was studying those that really set me apart, or that really I wanted to understand this. And that's why I ended up focusing so much on it.
I really like your explanations that you actually, before even you studied, I think if I may distill it for everyone who's listening, is that, we all started when we were doing human design to learn to be in our strategy and authority. I think what Wynn has shared with us is that when she found human design and understand about the strategy and authority, it's more about validation for her, because all prior to that, her life prior to that, she has been invited to, like when she's following that invitations, she's getting success. And her life, and I feel like I also want to invite everyone who's listening to this, who are struggling with strategy and authority, without really being judgmental or really criticizing whether or not you're following your strategy and authority, look back your life and notice where you have gained success. where things success mean, okay, whatever form success feel and look like for you, right? For me, being in the flow when things are moving in the right direction feels like a success for me. That gives me satisfaction. I'm a manifesting generator. So look back in life where things are just, oh yeah, I'm just follow one after the other based on whether it's an invitation or responding. Notice how you got into that, right? Because when you, instead of, oh, am I really listening to my sacral right now? Am I really in tune with my sacral right now? Especially for those generator out there who got really confused about your sacral, because you don't always want to feel where your sacral is. And just feel how you got into the flow of life. Because believe it or not, you are like, this is one thing that I keep hearing over and over again as I'm working with Wynd. It's like all this thing is already within you.
Yeah.
Don't question it too much. It's in you. The purpose of really learning and understanding human design is that acknowledging it to be there even more, right? Understand that it's already there within you, being able to know which one is true for you and which one is not true for you, because that's sometimes easier to know what is true and not true, good or bad. That's how our mind works. So that when you know that you're in like, oh, this is not me, then you can shift into the who you are. And I lost the train of thought. When you're coming back to that and starting to understand yourself more, things are flowing better. So this is not a system that you have to use it with logic.
Mm-mm.
This is not a mechanic as much as it is being presented as a mechanic, because there's always, it's blueprint, right? It's very mechanical. You're supposed to see things like little piece, like little line connected nicely with the dots and the triangles and all that. But it's in our life, it's not that way.
Yeah.
And believe it or not, if you can look back into your life where things feels like good or bad, flowing and moving you to a direction, you're already in your strategy and authority.
Yeah.
Now, the gates, I feel, is the little colors, the forms, the sensations, the feeling, the things that you can start to feel more of in your body as you learn in human design, that will help you fine tune that part of you that you feel, hey, I don't know who I am. Everything feels so distorted. I'm a little bit like confused, because when you're in that distorted, confused moment, that's when you're not in the flow of life. And that's when synchronicity and magic not happening.
Yeah.
So just to go back to reiterate what Wynd was showing me, why she got into really honing into gates. And that's why she's creating all these amazing cards and tools, human design tools, focusing on the gates and the channels, is because strategy and authority, like it or not, that's probably one thing that we've mastered. And we're just being validated with the beginning of human design that, oh, if I follow that, I could go back more into the energy. If I wait to respond, and this is one thing about words, and I think we spoke about in the previous podcast, be careful with words. Waiting to respond. For the longest time, when I first started waiting to respond, I'm a manifesting journaler. There's no waiting in my
Right.
And then there's like other people who are taking it really on a different level, when you're like, you just have to wait. Do anything else but wait. And then waiting can be very like different from one's, your mind, my mind. What does waiting look like?
Right.
It could be very restraining, very passive. In fact, it's not the waiting part, it's the responding part. Whether you're responding in the right way, where it feels, yes, this is me. And then you're like, because it's automatic when you're feeling like so alive and so eager to do, you're following your body, your sacral is jolting you, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if things are maybe and then you're starting to offend, and I have all the channel in my head that tends to be overthinking, I know that I have to, that's the waiting part. I have to stop. That stop doesn't mean that you're just then wait and then going crazy with thinking about it.
No. Yeah.
It's not my time to respond. Move on.
Yep.
So that is, and I feel, a validation more than a mechanic that you have to really get stuck on.
Yeah.
And I feel like your way of actually, I was going to say when you explained, I actually did it backward. I'm like, are you a manifesting generator?
Well, that is like a default. I've tried doing that, and sometimes I do play around with that, but I'm not though. But I'm like, some of the aspects of the man gen can definitely, I can feel that. But then also,
and I think that gives a freedom as well.
Yeah.
To, especially for all of those of you who have the 3 lines or the 6 line that you have to experiment through life, or you have, again, the gates that require you to experiment with life, then don't let the strategy and authority becoming the box, right? The limitation that then, but I'm called to experiment, but I'm not being called, I'm not supposed to do skipping step like man gen because I'm a direct projector. But what's wrong with just skipping that step from time to time, especially if you have like gates, for example, the change maker, that you have to experience life. Or what's the other gates that now flew by my risk taking?
28.
28. Yeah. You can't risk taking if you question yourself whether you're doing it right or wrong.
Yeah, no, you just got to jump out of that airplane. Just got to go for it.
Yeah.
Which is living, it's like living with your intuition, listening, and everybody has intuition. And it's honoring the intuition. Actually, so the people that I have seen on TikTok, or the creators that I'm following on TikTok that are talking about living in alignment with your intuition, quantum expansion, quantum self-expansion to generate wealth, abundance. I'm speaking of a couple people in particular. And when I actually casually asked them for their human design chart, I got the deets, and that they're living in alignment with their design. Like, I can see how they don't understand human design. It's not their calling to understand this information, but because she's wanting to focus on asking her intuition and asking what her intuition wants to do that day, and getting insights from her intuition, which I also see very clearly in her chart, that she's just naturally guided and she is experiencing the abundance. She's in that quantum field. She is in the expansive joy, freedom, bliss, expanded states of consciousness where the magic and synchronicity lies. It's like, you don't have to, that's why, and she's Gen Z. She's not even in her Saturn return yet. So it's like, you don't even have to know this stuff. It's already happening. Like people are already tapping into it and they don't even know it. And so I definitely see the correlation and the pattern.
And I think this is where generation also plays, right? The younger generation has more freedom because they came from our generation. For those of you who don't know, we're in our 40s. So what's Gen X? Is that what we call it?
You're more Gen X, but I'm going to bring you into you're a Zennial like me. I'm literally right on the cusp. But I like to, consciousness wise, I can relate to the Gen Zs.
Like those who are coming into age, like before the Saturn return, these are our children, right?
Yeah.
And I think in our generation, there's a little bit more understanding about consciousness, that we don't limit the generation below us. So they have the freedom and confidence to follow their intuitions, to follow alignment. While I feel like our generations or the generation prior to us, don't have the luxury that we have of understanding what is joy, happiness, what is being in alignment, following our intuition, unless, of course, you're in a community where that is being allowed to be. But I feel like for a lot of us, we have been conditioned to be in a certain way. And I think that's why the human design teaching, as it was originally taught, I understand now as very important. Because we as a generations were at one point, we're very put in a box.
Yep.
Right? That we have to follow certain things to survive.
Yeah.
Understandably, we were in the age of where there's a lot of chaos and we don't have as much of information as we do now.
Yep.
So the only way that you can survive and thrive is by maintaining a certain order, certain way to relate, certain way of thinking, certain way of behaving. And that's where we like becoming totally lost and not aware, forgetting of who we are as a true self.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of work that I believe the original teaching get you back into that strategy and authority is the first thing to do because that's the easiest, right?
Yeah.
To get you back to, oh, I'm doing it right because I'm flowing with my intuition, with my body.
Yeah.
Or I'm out of it totally.
Yeah. And that's also relative too, I think. Some people actually really struggle with the strategy and authority. So and this is all pretty much theory on my part, but I'm like, what if we back engineer? Do it backwards. Like, why not? Reverse engineer the flow, reverse engineer the patterning, and then see what kind of gems what kind of self-awareness gems that are capable within understanding the gates and then understanding like the little flow of pattern and then see what happens in your consciousness from that angle.
Yeah.
We're working backwards.
So share us then what's like your own experience of understanding gates that makes you start to see how this is creating that alignment within you so that you don't then rely on what other people are telling you.
Yeah.
Or starting to following the original teaching of human design, the deconditioning process where
right.
Okay, so I can now trust this energy more than the other part of me that always question it or things like, or maybe for you, it was just more, I've been following the strategy and authority being invited all over the place. And this is just like showing me, oh, I'm in the right path. I'm already in the right path. So
So one thing, so my very open G center, no gates, activations, I can experiment and play around with all the gates in there very freely. So and the G center for you guys to understand is it's the center, it's that where the higher heart chakra, it's the higher self, I guess you could say is like where that lives, but it's all about love, identity, and direction. Actually,
posters right there.
Yes, actually, let me show you. Yeah, which is, okay, hold on. Ethan, we're going to cut in on me with have the G center. I'll make some graphics we'll make some graphics and we'll show where the G center is. So it's all about the center for love and direction. And if you don't have anything activated in your chart, I do have the second gate, which is down at the bottom, and that is the receptivity gate, and it's in my Chiron. It's not activated in my chart per se, but it's in there. Like it's in when you look at the zodiac. Anyways, do not get too much into the details, but it's in my Chiron placement, and that's where I'm wounded the most, and I just have to be receptive and I have to receive. So when I get out of my own way, or when my ego gets out of my own way, and I was able to just follow my heart, follow my inner intuition and my guidance, I would naturally fall, or my direction would just reveal itself and haphazardly, almost like I wouldn't intend. I just had to be in a place of receiving and get out of my own way. Mentally, emotionally even. And then things would just fall into place. Like knowing that we were going to be doing a professional 2.5 year, very successful house sitting journey on the West Coast. I had no idea that's what I was going to do, but that's what we ended up doing.
Yeah.
And we just fell into it. And so the reason why I wanted to go into the gates, because I don't have a very clear sense of direction of like, where am I going? What's next? But I followed my passion. Like I wanted to understand this human design thing. I wanted to. And now in retrospect, I was just so curious about finding, like looking at the gates, talking to people, talking to like family members. I just naturally went into the gates. Every single time, I even think that a lot of my earlier readings, I probably gave them way too much information overload because I went straight into the gates and I just gave them all the information. I was just like, whoa, not knowing that it was in one ear and out the other, right? And so I saw that as, I'm like, gosh, there's just so much information here. Like we have all the data. We have all the words. We have all the mental constructs. There's so much data that's available now. You can go, there's so much you can read, so much you can learn. Okay, how about let's simplify that? And then what is something that, because this is actually, the gates are understanding the archetypes. They're just archetypes. And what would be like a really fun way to get to understand the archetypes in your life is, so that's essentially why I ended up actually, I set the intention to make the book or try to make the book or set the intention to write a book or study the gates or do that. And then turning it into an oracle deck with pictures and then getting you involved, Karen, to help distill the information into more process. It just happened. Like all this, I wasn't really intending. It was just, I don't know. It just flowed. It just organically and naturally happened. I brought something to you. I was like, oh, Karen, I ended up making an oracle deck for this. I remember the conversation that we had. I was like, Karen, I made this oracle deck. Look, and you're like, oh my gosh, wow. And then you responded. I'm like, I didn't even know you were a writer. I'm like, I didn't know that you wanted to write. I'm like, I wanted to have a ghostwriter to help me put this stuff into a format. And then I'm like, Karen, you have amazing background of body, mind, consciousness, self-awareness junkie like me. I'm like, all this is all just happening. I'm like, we didn't set the intent. It was like a general vague intention, but we allowed the universe.
Yes.
We danced with the universe is what my yoga teacher would always say. Just dance with the universe. And I remember when I was in my 20s, he told me that. I was like, what is? And now I'm just like,
yeah.
Oh, I guess I'm dancing, huh?
You were already dancing with the universe since 20 years ago.
I know, yeah. But it's weird when you're like, what do you mean by that? And then you just start to it's like surrendering. You're surrendering to the flow.
Yeah.
Yeah, surrendering to the flow, which is why I'm like, and that was my biggest, and I think that is like the biggest core crux of what I wanted to create. I saw a window of opportunity of how to get it more integrative, how to take these awarenesses and make it playful and fun and meditative. And like I've been using that, turning your conscious awareness with your own human design chart and turning it into your own advent calendar, where every day you get to open up a new door of awareness inside of yourself, with the hope and the intention that once you start to see these little pieces, that then you connect the dots. Or you start to connect the dots. Absolutely. And then that opens up more doorways and that opens up more options.
Yeah. I like that. I like that concept of the Advent calendar and opening up one gate at a time.
Yeah.
And I've seen the deck and I've used the deck as well, though I don't have it physically. But it's a nice visual representation, so you don't have to overthink it much of what does it mean for me? Because for me, the visuals give me like a sense of energy and feelings, even just seeing the color, right? And then another great thing, the tools that you also have those big posters of the body graph. And this is how you can actually make it like an Advent calendar, where you place the card, the gates on those calendars and start to notice where all these connections and what the energy when it's connected look like or feel like. Because especially if you're a visual person, you start to, it's almost like the picture opening up and bloom like a flower that blooms in front of you. And combined with, if you have the understanding of the planetary behind it, or how it's, especially I want to also talk about the incarnation cross. As I understand it correctly from you, is that 70% of the total energy of the body graph is represented in that incarnation cross, which is personality sun, personality earth, unconscious sun, and unconscious earth, right?
Yep.
And even for me, when I start to look at where the gates are in the body, in relation to the planets, it's almost like you're opening up your own cosmic map. Like it gives that broader view of, oh, so this are all are connected. And from there, you can like, all right, if I activate this and this will open up this channel, for example, right? Or if I activate this, I'm opening up this part of me, like maybe it's the spleen centers, or you're more intuitive, or you're opening up your willpower. So it almost I guess that's the idea, right? To give a guidance where you want to step in more from moment to moment. I want to ask this question as well. It's like, how have you experienced this in your own life as you're like, I love the way that you're giving that example of allowing the open G center to experience different directions. And I wonder, what else have you used your gate to experience that different part of you?
It's so fascinating because the G center really is coming into focus. Yeah, traditional human design says focus on where your centers are defined. So I only have my root, which is the center for pressure to do. And I look at and I actually have several activations in that. I have a lot of activations. So like the pressure to do, right? And then my spleen, which is body awareness center, following my intuition, following that. Okay, when I didn't know what direction I was going and I had to pivot. Actually, this was even about a year ago. I had to pivot for a moment. So basically, I had to make a hairpin turn inside of myself in order to almost like jump timelines a little bit and switch up the Hawaii. I had to do like a massive reorganization inside of myself in order to then realign me with this new trajectory or reconfigure. But it was like the pressure to do, okay, and then sticking with my intuition, and then the body awareness, following my spleen, and following the pressure to take action from my root, but then allowing my G center and the openness of my G center to, you're not supposed to but how am I supposed to make decisions from there? I just have to be open to how this is unfolding. Like I don't really have anything stuck, or I don't have, the only thing is just my gate 2 and my Chiron. So it's just like receiving. Okay, I just have to be open to receiving the pressure that I'm feeling to take action or switching inside of myself. And I even let human design, I let it all go for a period of a couple of months. 3 months, I scrapped it. I even tried, I'm like, I'll just do something else. Okay, I scrapped the whole thing. And then come August, it resurfaced and and then now here we are today. So it was this, and then that's how essentially that's how I navigated my life. I was willing to let it go. I'm like, it was almost that if you love something, let it go. If it's yours, it will come back to you. I had to totally live by that. I was like, okay, I'm like, whatever, I'll do whatever. I even thought that I would have to go back to full-time to just graphic design working for another company. I was like, all right, I'm open, because that was totally open G center. I'm like, I don't know. Let me just throw a giant net out. Let me just cast the net to see what sticks, because I literally have no idea. I have no idea. I just got to stay open and see as I keep moving forward through space and time what happens and what was going to stick. And then I found something. And then because I pivoted back into the tech world, I found there was a key element in the tech world that I would not have paid attention to if I would have I had to like cross, I had to branch out into the other areas. Because if you're in the tech world, chances are you're just going to stay in the tech world. If you're in the spiritual self-development world, you're going to stay in the spiritual and self-development world. But with my Open G Center, I'll just bounce around. I'm just going to bounce around and try some stuff out. So pressure to do, I wanted to create, I was following my intuition. I was following an alignment with my design through this giant open space of whatever in the center of my being. Where are we going here? What are we doing? And then one step led to another, and then I got back into the flow. And now here, and then it was just one thing to the next, and then here we are today with an amazing kick-ass product that is like a birthing baby of just awesomeness.
I love that. And so for those who are listening today, what will be like, I'm sure those who are listening are either already in human design, have some understanding human design, maybe it's a little bit confused. And that was me, like before I started to write all these gates were like, I know human design, but some of it, I don't know where I am with it. I'm not sure if I'm already conditioned 100%, or I'm not sure if I'm following the whole thing, the blueprint, right to the dot as the way that was taught.
Right.
Because it's a broad subject. That the mechanic of it was at one point is a little bit hard to understand for myself. So for those who are listening to this and probably intrigued and wants to buy the deck and your other human design tools, or already have some of those tools, what will be a good practice to do to start to open like this advent calendar that you said, right? To better understand themselves, have clarity, and just like the way that you present it, like just be in the dance with universe. I think that is what a lot of this thing I feel is, it's about putting you back into that dance with the universe instead of being in the chaos of, I don't know what's going on. I don't know who I am. I don't know if I'm following my strategy and authority. Am I doing it right? Am I making best decision for myself? Especially we are in a very transitionary time period right now, right?
Yeah.
Things could feel like up in the air and nothing fall on its own yet. So how can your tools help them be clear on who they are, know their purpose, what they can be present or be confident with internally, be able to follow their intuition and dance?
Okay. So like we've said earlier in the podcast, we're doing a reverse engineering. We're doing it backwards. And a couple things, because I'm sure that if I had some IHDS analysts listening to this podcast, and if you are, and you're calling blasphemy on the way that I have interpreted myself through this lens, I am a 5/1 heretic investigator profile. I'm just living in alignment with my design, you guys. Sorry, not sorry. I'm interpreting it in my own way. Hopefully that someone else might also benefit from this without getting put into a box, because I don't have the conditioning of the IHDS school. And maybe I'm just saying it. If it works for you, that's great. What I'm doing, and if you feel called, and that's totally fine, I'm just offering another option that I saw that my passion, my soul, I'm like, because I've just had a different experience with it. It's just, everyone is on their own path. So because we're reverse engineering this, and that we leave a lot, and because Karen, you have a very open design. I also have a lot of wide open centers are in both of our charts, which I feel that we almost act as a space container for other people and almost holding a container for you to experience yourself and not feeling putting yourself in a box with the way that this was taught, not being overly critical and judgmental, or this is how it's supposed to be. It was said X, Y, and Z. It has to be taught X, Y, and Z. Now, and also my belief or my principle and a value of mine is that you need to be able to interpret the words and the language in your own way, and releasing all the judgment and all the because that part, we all have to deal with our own inner critics. And if, even Karen Curry Parker, who I get her emails, she's the quantum human design. I love her. I almost feel she's just an excellent teacher. She also deals with imposter syndrome and comparison and not following the path that laid before her, or feeling like the judgment. And we all have our own inner critic and our own inner voice, even no matter how advanced or we're so overly critical of ourselves. The last thing that we need is a system or a body of knowledge to reinforce those critiques, saying that you're not doing it right. That's not how you're supposed to do it. This is not how it was taught. And no, we need to remove anything that's telling you're not living in alignment with your design and saying, no, you are able to interpret it in a way that works for you.
Yes. Yes.
And feeling, because I want you to feel empowered with the information and not feel judged. And which is another reason why I brought in the themes of consciousness, was because anyone that is like judgmental, or if you're getting experience or feeling judgment by other people or other forms of like, it's supposed to be this way, I'm like, that's a very limited contracted theme of consciousness. Yeah. It's like moving into a place of acceptance would be the more heightened, enlightened theme where you feel more expansive, because you can hold multiple perspectives at the same time and being okay with it. And it's like, it's getting rid of the I'm right, you're wrong, instead of transforming it as, okay, you're right and I'm right.
Yeah.
Your perspective is correct, and also my perspective is also correct.
Yeah.
And being able to hold that container equally.
Yeah. Because that's all expansion is all about, is remembering that we are spirits. We have to remove a lot of our own limitation or judgment to think that a certain thing is just is.
Yeah.
Because if you think about the concept of oneness, really everything is.
Everything really just is.
This is.
Even our perceived, it's negative, it's bad. Okay, I'm gonna plug the Leo King in here just because. I mean, I made the deck just so everybody knows. I used AI to make the artwork. I did. And so if you have an issue with that, I understand. But I'm going to open up an invitation, because David Palmer, the Leo King, he's a really well-known astrologist. People were coming to him being like, I can't believe you're dabbling with AI. You're dabbling. What are you doing? Oh my God, it's the devil. And I was like, okay, I get that. I understand. I see that perspective. But if we're programming AI and the humans, it's like we have to be the bigger person. We have to be able to hold
the control. We create the damn thing.
Yes. If we're going to program, we can program them with, it's all consciousness. It's consciousness. Consciousness creates everything. And so in order to have intelligent AI, we have to program AI to actually have a soul, have a consciousness, have a moral compass, have a heart. The Wizard of Oz with the Tin Man wanting a heart. He wants a heart. It's in there. We've been dealing with this potential and mechanical stuff. It's in our collective consciousness with our archetypal storytelling.
Yeah.
And the wizard gave the Tin Man a heart. Grace can't be broken. Or anyways, that's a whole other topic. But it's like having a moral compass, because like the consciousness, nothing is good or bad. Yeah. Everything just is. And which is why we also wrote in the inner guidebook, shadow and light, because like you can take a look at, are you in shadow, which is the contracted, limited themes of consciousness, and see what questions you can ask yourself to transcend that into. So it's not like getting stuck in shadow work and getting like enamored and just doing the shadow work. No. What steps, what awarenesses, what conscious aha moments, opening up the doorway of what you need to see inside of yourself with self-reflection, and then taking those steps to expand into
Absolutely.
acceptance and acceptance states.
Wonderful.
Yeah. I was like, oh man, people are not going to like that I made the images with AI. And I'm like, but they turned out so good. They're so good. I love them.
Yeah, they're amazing. They're amazing. And I think you mentioned this in the previous podcast too. It will require more than one person to do those images to make it that great, and probably longer time to create them.
Oh, yeah.
AI has, that's one thing about AI that I think people will want to have to shift their perspective a little bit, is to use AI to the benefit of the expansion. Because this take a lot of productivity time, help you create something faster.
Yeah.
In the time that because we're living from moment to moment. The present moment is more important. Losing time or being able in a confused state is not acceptable anymore, because we're moving. Everything is evolving in a very fast time. So either you're going to stay stuck, not honoring your present moment and moving with it, or you can flow. Like, this is why I feel like your product and you're teaching this in this time is to help others to also start coming back into, I need to be in the present moment, because I think these tools will help you to anchor you in this in this time where you need to be anchored back into who you are, into your light and activated self, instead of being stuck in the shadow, as you mentioned, so that you can always flow with what's inviting you, instead of you have to, like, for me, especially with all the gates of overthinking, like releasing, decluttering all of that, so I can come back into, all right, I need to flow again, to be in that light and activated essence of me. And I feel technology has always been there as a creation to help us. And I think this is why we're really wanting people to honing in their intuition, in their inner wisdom, because whether or not technology, because again, with any creation, the light and the shadow, be able to determine for yourself what's good or not good is by you honoring who you are, knowing your value, because that's the only GPS, I feel, that can give you the right navigation right now in your life. Not what other people telling you, but what your inner guidance is sharing with you. And the tools with human, I think that's one thing another reason why it's created in an oracle deck, because at any moment you're confused, you have that tool physically with you to say, okay, what do I need to know? What am I experiencing right now? How do I get out of it? And everything is in that card and in the book. I was just doing it myself yesterday. I was just mind blowing with how I'm just being guided through the images and through the words that are in the book to say, okay, these are my action steps. It's very fast. It's very easy. And I'm very thankful for you to create this. And I'm also thankful for the AI who's engineering it in the background. When this is the dance of life, right? When it's meant to be, it's just going to flow.
And you can't stop it.
You can't stop it. Yeah.
It's going to happen if it's going to happen. And the universe will conspire in your favor.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I love that I let it go and I released it. I released it and I was just like, forget it. I'm just going to focus my attention somewhere else for a moment. And then it just came back full force and it's become a thing.
And that's the power of understanding your gate. Because if you don't have that gem of gate 2, understand where its placement in your career, you will always struggle to want to achieve and not letting it to just all right, I'm surrendering.
And I just had to surrender. And the same thing happened essentially right before I started working the invitation or living with the art of invitation 2012, 2013-ish was when I really started just intuitively just surrendering, not trying, because I did try living life as a man gen. I tried making stuff happen and just was knocking on doors to try to make this thing that I wanted to make happen and fell totally flat. Like it just did not, it was not working. And then I surrendered. I let everything go. And in that space, for me, of letting everything go, that's when things started to come back into alignment.
Yeah.
Or like just naturally figuring out. One of the ways that I deconditioned intuitively was, and I also just found out where my ascendant, like what gate my ascendant according to astrology, what that is, and it was commitment. And I thought that was fascinating because prior to 2010, 2011, when I had my aha conscious, I don't know, you might say it was a manic episode or it was like a massive DMT, just crazy, like gate 17, like just craziness. Okay, that whole led me to, I'm like, I made a commitment to living outside and I made a commitment to live outside, not in a house, living out in nature, in a tent, until it was time to go back inside. And I did that I did not live in a house for 4 years. I did not live with electricity surrounding me for 4 years. Now, I'm not saying go and do that. No, I checked in. There was no social media. There was no there was no influencer telling me that this is what I needed to do. I didn't even have any friends that were doing this. Everyone looked at me like I had 3 heads, maybe it's like 10 heads. What are you doing? And I'm like, I got to follow. I don't know. I'm really called to commit to living outside. I'm committed to living outside. And I did that.
For those of you who are listening to this and looking at what, all this, energy, notice how many times Wynd said intuition, like how she's following her intuition.
Yeah.
And notice, because she has a lot of gates coming out of her spleen is also defined.
Yeah.
So for her, intuition is key awareness center. And notice when she's following and trying to become a manifesting generator, if I can also give you some clarity there, she has a lot of pressure centers. So she always being pressured to do something. But her Chiron, where it's hidden, which is her gift, if she allows that gift to arise, is in surrendering. And that's where things are flowing for her when she allowed that wound to just being released and just allow herself to just open and surrender. So this is the mechanic. Although it's not really a mechanic, it's already in your language. If you want to pay attention, you already have this, funny enough, because it's the awareness of the human design, the gates. It's all just to give you now extra wordings.
Yes.
Extra anchoring.
Yeah.
Extra distilling in yourself to start to owning it and believing it so much more, because like it or not, if you just listen to yourself for 15 minutes, half an hour, you already live in your design.
Yeah.
Now it's a matter of, okay, I want to emphasize it by owning it even more. And here are the tools for you. And in fact, we have this coming Saturday, right, where we're going to demonstrate it for you, live demonstrate it for you in a reading. So if you're called and you enjoy, come and sign up. There's a sign up on your social media link, and I'm sure we're going to put some down below here.
Yep.
We're going to do this every Saturday, so come and join us anytime. You can come as many as you want. Learn from us how we're doing it with the card and Wynd's other human design tools.
Yep.
Notice how Wynd's extra intuitions will help guide you. And with both our open G centers, I think that's one thing that I appreciate about the open centers. If you're having difficulties of allowing or accepting it within yourself, is to be able to play around with different energy. so that we have better understanding of different things, different gates even, because especially in the communal and when we're in the presence of other people, we got a taste of all this different energy and we play with that.
Yep.
So come and really join us for being in a community of like-minded people, of course, and just being present of different energies at place and start to understand the energies of the gates and your channels, because that will, I feel, give you the nourishments or the breadcrumbs for you to start to understand and embodying, integrating all this within yourself.
Yeah.
Again, all of this are already within you. You just have to be awakened to it.
Yes.
And that's what the amazing Wynd has created for all of us. It becomes very visual, very easy to grasp, because again, it's the body that needs the feet, the nourishment, right? Not just the mind.
And then also super blessed and honored to have Karen put the words into each gate and taking the images and the concepts into a way that I would have never done. I'm just like, every time I read a new chapter, I'm just like, I'm literally mind blown. So it's like we're a match made in heaven.
Yeah.
Yay.
We're meant to do this.
We are meant to do this. It's so awesome because I have seen other Oracle decks on the gates, but it didn't come with a book. And I was like, I need more. I want more. And the book is so important. I originally started with the book and it was going to be just shadow and light gates. I have a little booklet. I had like a little ad for what the book was going to be. I set the intention to put it out there, but it has now morphed into something I think I feel 1,000 times better. Yay!
Excited for all of this to be released out there, because I feel like this is a great time for people to really get clear on themselves and honoring who they are, owning that GPS that's already within you instead of getting lost in the chaos world that just want to pull you to different directions.
Mm-hmm.
When you really live your purpose, there's no stopping you.
No. And people have said it, but until you start and you're like, oh my gosh, I guess this is what I'm doing. I had no idea that this is what I was going to be doing, but this is what I'm doing. And now here it is. I had no idea and no clue. And it's that element of being surprised and dancing with the universe.
Oh, yes.
Dancing with the universe.
I like that.
Yeah. Thank you all so much for joining us here. Okay, if you are watching us on YouTube, please hit and subscribe. We already mentioned that we're having our free events on Saturdays, and that is going to be a continuous event. There's a whole bunch of links on the human design, holistic human design. Okay, hold on. We have a links page. It's holistichuman.design/links. We also have it in the description within the podcast, in the description within the YouTube page. Definitely check that out. See what we have in there. Feel free to reach out, ask questions, come join us in our Telegram group.
Yeah, do join us in our Telegram, because Wynd she's just on with those voice memos, give you energy updates, answering questions, and it's a place to really get and learn from the master herself.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The what?
And I'm chiming there from time to time.
Yes. No, I don't know. It's my little mini house, and thank goodness Karen does chime in. But I love voice memos. I don't know if it's like the windstorm, if it's that windy energy. I just speak the windstorm. Yeah, and it's really easy for me to do that. It's the easiest way. I've always found Facebook, there's just too many options. I'm like, nope, we're just going to simplify. We're going to simplify it over here.
Telegram, you can be open. You can share a lot of things. And we also can share a lot of things that we know and understand and feel a little bit more not a closed space, but for us to also be able to share a lot more than
Yeah.
we can in the other social media platform.
Yes, yes. Thank you so much. Aloha. Love you all. Thank you, Karen. Thank you, everyone who's listening. Welcome to our little mini tribe. Super stoked to have you here, empowering you to expand into your human design and elevate your consciousness in the process. Yay!